the phone call.
All
We're
right.
so excited.
First
Yay.
U.S. Championship phone call.
All right. Yeah, hello.
Doing a great job as usual. Jennifer, love the blonde streak. Looking hot there.
Thank you. Where are you from?
I'm John Cordisco from upstate New York. My question was, since there was so much controversy in the FIDE candidates final and tiebreak system, what is the tiebreaks in the U.S. Women's and the U.S. Open Championship?
Thank you, Jack. A wonderful question. I'm very, very proud to say we play playoffs.
Thank goodness. Because especially in a round robin, it's very important, in my opinion, not to use math tie breaks unless you're really constrained by the scheduling of the tournament.
Exactly.
Sometimes you really have very few choices. Even then, I prefer some kind of Armageddon,
Blitz,
15-minute, anything, because it's a round robin. You all play the same players, especially in the candidates. It's even worse because you don't even have different colors.
Exactly. It's a double round robin. I mean, you know, I can believe the head-to-head matchup in the candidates as being the first tiebreaker. That makes a little sense to me. Thereafter, playoff.
Yes, exactly. I don't even think the head-to-head, but I like the playoff. Of course, I felt a little bit more strongly about it because it was our guy.
Oh boy.
It's one of those things I didn't even if Avi had benefited from it, you would have asked me and I would have said I didn't like the idea, but I would be like, well, let's take it. You know, I mean, let's take the spot.
Right.
But especially since he was being damaged by it, it was particularly painful.
Yes.
Because it felt kind of unjust, even though they knew the rules in advance. Maurice.
Thank you again to Jack for that great question.
I gotta say, even if it was our guy, just personally, I think that fair play says playoffs. Come on, whoever decides the entire event on some tiebreak system, that's just completely ridiculous. Maybe when you're in the initial stage trying to get to the playoffs, trying to get to the finals, but the entire event based on tiebreaks, that's completely ridiculous. I think it was absolutely unfair, and I'm glad we're not.
Hi folks, John Cordisco here. Another game from round one, this time from the U.S. Women's Championship 2016. I'll tell you honestly, I think the women play a lot more tactically. It's basically ruthless. Attack at all costs. I like watching a lot of the ladies' games much better than the men, and this is an example of that. As white, the bridesmaid but never the bride, Tatev Abrahamyan. I say that because she's coming close to winning the U.S. Women's Championship numbers of times. And I'm sure I'm going to butcher this name. Agata Bykovtsev, Bykovtsev, Bykovtsev. Good luck with that. I'll just call her Agata. As black, it's going to be a Sicilian. Let's get to it. Detective Abrahamyan is white. Agata is black. Knight takes knight. We'll go through the opening here. It's pretty much standard stuff. G4, Bishop E7. Now, the computer shows this is the last book move. Okay. Typical Sicilian stuff. You're probably going to have to see white castle on the queen side, if at all. G5, kicking the knight goes back to D7. And then Bishop G2. I like white, even though the computer shows a tiny advantage for white. I think white's doing okay. Castles, F4. She just continues with the pawn storm. Typical Sicilian stuff. Even game. We're probably going to have opposite side castling. Knight C6. Bishop E3. Knight takes. Queen takes. Okay. What to do, what to do. Instead of bishop takes, after e5, bishop e3, pawn takes, bishop takes, queen takes, bishop checks, king goes to e2, and rook e8. Not very pleasant for white. Even though it's no big deal, it's scarier than it looks, but who wants to get into that nonsense? After queen takes, e5, queen d2, pawn takes, bishop takes, knight e5. Good spot for that knight. Very good spot. You want to give up your bishop for the knight, at the same time reconnect all his pawns? Nope, don't want to do that. Knight to d5, Knight to c4, interesting, hitting the queen. What to do, what to do? Knight takes, check. The in-between or intermezzo move. And then queen goes to d4. Okay, solve that problem. I still don't like the fact that white has a isolated e-pawn and black has a d-pawn isolated. But white has the bishop pair. We'll see how this turns out. Bishop e6. b3 just to kick the knight. The knight goes to a3. Interesting. It was a toss-up, to be honest with you. Knight to e5 is a little bit more accurate, and that's probably what I would have done. But knight to a5 is the end of the world, and white finally castles. Well, typical Sicilian. Open file on the king. And white's got a pawn storm coming. Those of you wondering about queen takes d6. After knight checks, king moves, queen takes, bishop takes, knight takes, bishop takes, knight takes. Basically comes out the same. Actually, white ends up being down a pawn. But after castles, rook a to c8. Get those rooks right on the king. Rook to d2, protecting the c2 square. Computer shows this as even. It looks a little scary for white on the queen side there, but it's not that bad. It's manageable. King's well protected. But this is where I think black starts to lose the thread a little bit. Knight to b5 is probably an accurate move. Queen c7. When rook f to d8. Now it's a very natural move. Very natural move. But the problem is, after queen to b4, knight to b5, e5. Can't take the pawn because the queen is hanging. So you have to move the queen. And then pawn takes. Just down a pawn. a5. Queen should probably take a5, but black's in so much trouble now, I don't think it matters. After queen takes a5, to give you an idea, rook a, rook to a8, queen, rook takes. Even though it looks scary, white's fine here. After queen to a4, bishop d7, move the knight for a discovery, the queen just moves. Now, what would be wrong with bishop takes b7? After knight takes, queen, knight takes, and white is doomed. But after queen to e4, queen takes, bishop takes, knight check, bishop, rook to b8. I would have a heck of a time with this. Frankly, I wouldn't really know what to do. Bishop goes back to g2. Knight takes check. King moves. Knight b4. Alright, white's up a pawn. I think he's in really good shape. That pawn on d6 is just a pain in the behind of black. We'll see how this works out. It's a lot more for white than you think. It's a 2.5 point advantage now for white. Rook d1. Knight to a6. Those are the one about a4 instead. After rook goes there, it might as well resign. But after knight to a6, rook e7 anyway, knight c5, bishop, and now the pieces just coming storming down here. And that's when I got Bykovtsev. Yeah, good luck with that. Resigns. Give you an idea what will happen. Rook has to take. Rook takes. And it's over. So, great game by Bykovtsev-Rd.1. She wins the round one in the U.S. Women's Championship 2016. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a great tournament. It always is, especially the ladies. They leave a lot of blood on the board. Anyway, folks, as I always say, if you think chess is just a game, you're not playing it right. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.